Luke Rockhold versus Paulo Costa. Baba Booey. That's all I could say. It was the result I expected, but it went the distance. In all fairness, I was expecting Luke to lose in the first round, but he hung in there. There wasn't a whole lot of trading. You know that Costa didn't want to lose this fight. He didn't want to be on a 3-fight losing skid. And then you could tell that Luke, the shots that he landed were out of frustration and throwing everything he's got into those fights. Now, a lot of people are shitting all over Luke right now because he was crying through the entire fight. And, yeah, he just seemed demoralized in there. But in spite of all the garbage he was talking on the lead up, a lot of the stuff that he said towards Paulo Costa wasn't even funny. It was just malicious, where you could tell like he's really trying hard to be mean, and it just seemed forced. How do I say this? I understand his frustration. Kinda. I'm not at his age yet, but I could see that when you get older, your body doesn't work like it used to. A lot of things don't work like they used to, and you're not getting any younger. And also, you got to look back at Luke Rockhold's career. He was about to be the greatest middleweight of all time after beating Chris Weidman, but he got cocky against Michael Bisping. He had a win, and then he got cocky against everybody else pretty much. Excuse me. It's late night, and I'm reflecting. Romero, Blachowicz, and now Costa. He was back at middleweight, and this was his last hurrah. I think he was probably blaming himself for a lot of things. He's rich though. He's famous. He's got a modeling career. I saw that pose at the end. You could see where he's like doing that. Hey man, Luke, I don't swing in that direction, but you got a really good looking torso. Maybe you should use that. Okay. Maybe you should go back to modeling or acting, or you could make money in other ways too, man. I mean, you could always be a trainer, and you could always do jiu-jitsu competitions. I know you're a black belt, but that's besides the point. Luke Rockhold, man, is an interesting character in the UFC. And also, he invented a move on his way out, the blood motorboat. But I think he was beating himself up mentally in that octagon, being a little too hard on himself. And I understand when you're at the top of your game and you've been so arrogant, which has led to a lot of your losses, and you realize that your body's not going to keep up with the higher middleweights and that the title is kind of out of the picture for you. And, we saw it. He was tearing up in there. He had blood coming out of his mouth. He didn't look like he was having a good time. And the one good shot, the really good shot I saw him get on Paulo Costa in the second round was when he was just frustrated and said, F you, and threw a fat one at Costa, which connected. Don't get me wrong. I guess the anger kind of prepared. And he almost got a Hail Mary knockout in the third round, but I think Costa just kind of got his shit together, and Costa ended up winning. And, I think he realized it. He's getting old. He had an interesting last 10 seconds in there, rubbing his blood all over Paulo's face. And maybe part of me doesn't feel bad for him because he just was really being heinous towards Paulo in this fight. But you could tell it was kind of out of, what I think was insecurity. Luke, no offense. I know you could beat me up. But, yes. But having said that, Luke Rockhold is one of my favorite fighters because I do like to remember the prime. I like to remember the real, you know, G that got the middleweight strap, beat Chris Weidman. But, things happen. If you were getting the belt like you did and you had a fantastic run at first, I'd be cocky too. It just happens. So I'm not mad at him. When you're at that level of fighting, which is probably the closest thing to Egyptian god cards from Yu-Gi-Oh. Bruh. Luke Rockhold is probably going to go down as one of the best faces in the UFC. But, he's not the only person who has reached the top and then had a tumble down. It just happens, and I'm sure he'll be all right. Thank you for the memories. But, yeah, I could see why you're upset at the end of that. You want to continue that glory, but your body just won't say yes. May God bless you, Luke, and thank you very much.